foam will go on. You can see we've broken our joints here horizontally. Now on top of the foam, there's going to be some 2x4 furring strips get installed. Where did I put my screw gun? There we go. Okay, the furring strips would come down flush with the edge of the fascia board, be fastened into place. On the bottom side here, you can take some 16-penny nails, common nails, nail it fast to the dummy rafters underneath, and also across the insulation stop. Up on the foam, that will be installed with the same 10-inch screws we used to fasten the insulation stop down earlier. Now it's a good idea if you can, when you're putting your second layer of foam on, if you can do the cuts so they will fall underneath one of the 2x4s, it's a very good idea. What that'll do, it'll help to keep the edges down. The foam has a tendency, if it gets rained on and the sun comes out, has a tendency for the edges to curl up on the sheet. If that happens, there's nothing wrong with taking the sheet and flipping it over. And when you put the 2x4s on, that'll flatten everything back down. But if you can, try to get a 2x4 to fall over the joint of the foam. It will hold both edges down for you. Flip that. Okay. The screws would be installed directly over top of your purlins. Best way to find the center of this here, take a square and square down over your fascia on both sides, snap a chalk line across the top of the foam, and that will give you the location of where to install the screws. When you put the screws in, have somebody go inside the house, look up at the purlin, make sure the screws did not miss either the top or bottom side. If they did, back the screw out, reposition it, and put it back in again. Once the roof sheeting is on, it's really hard to take the screws out, so check that before you put any roof sheeting on. Makes the job a whole lot nicer. When you have the 2x4 nailers on, there's a piece of 1x6 board that goes on the bottom here to close up any of the gaps we have here. Okay. This board would be kept flush with the outside edge of the board will be kept flush with the top of the 2x4s. Right there. So when the OSB sheeting comes down, it'll hit right on the outside edge. Okay. When this board's installed, that closes off any of the gap you have here, and this will allow you to put any rain gutter on here. It will sit nice and flat in the surface. Before you install your roof sheeting, if you have any lights or fans in this area, you need to install the electrical wire next. Okay. Electrical wire would go down through your foam. You need to drill a little hole here to get down into that little V groove area we talked about earlier, and then you can run your wire wherever you need to. Once your wire is installed, you want to come back. You want to spray this hole that you made here for wire with some spray foam, or I'll stuff it full of fiberglass insulation. You want to make sure everything is sealed properly. As far as the electrical wire itself, needs to be fastened down so it's not just hanging up in the air like this. It's a good idea to try and fasten the wire directly to the foam. Go to the hardware store, buy some long staples, and staple the wire directly to the foam. The reason we suggest doing it that way, as opposed to stapling it fast to the side of the 2x4 nailer, you may get some questions from your inspector on this, but this is what you can at least ask him. He may not go along with this. But if you fasten the wire directly to the side of the 2x4, and when the roof sheeting is being installed, if the person doing the nailing is not paying attention and they would miss the 2x4 and you had that wire nailed directly to the side, there's a good possibility the nail will go down and hit that electrical wire. It's going to short out your fan or light. And the problem with doing that is you will not know that that fan or light is actually, the wire is actually damaged until your house is pretty much finished. It's going to be one of the last things you do is hook up your lights and fans. And then when you go to turn that on, you'll find it doesn't work. Well, it's almost impossible to try to pull another wire through this roof system because it's not going to be just a straight run. You're going to have some bends in it where it's going down through the insulation or across the roof or whatever it is. So it's very hard to pull another wire. So if you take this wire and keep it out on the foam, make sure it lays nice and flat, staple it down, there's a lot less likelihood of a wire being hit. We're going to have 1.5 inches of airspace. We're going to have 1/2 inch OSB roof sheeting on top. That gives you a full 2 inches. The nails we supply for the shingles are 1.25 inches. So you will have room there that you're not going to be touching your wire with those nails. So that is one of the arguments you can give the inspector. Now, he may insist you put this in a metal conduit. There's nothing wrong with doing that. A lot of builders will also run an extra wire, like on the opposite side of the 2x4. So if one did get damaged, they can always switch out that wire to the spare wire, and hopefully that one didn't get hit and you have power up to your light or fan. At the top of the ridge, we mentioned earlier that you need to miter the foam to try to get a good fit. If your fit isn't tight up, isn't a real good fit up there, there's nothing wrong with taking some spray foam, spraying that void fill up there. On top of the ridge purlin, we have a flat spot on the ridge. We have tongue and groove coming up over. We have a little triangle area there. We need to insulate that area. Now that area would be right here at the end of this dummy rafter, right where Claude's hand is. That right there, cut the felt paper and make sure you fill that area with some fiberglass insulation, or you can cut a piece of the rigid insulation and stuff in there. It's very important that that area be filled up with foam or some type of insulation. If you think about this, we have a solid cap of insulation over the ridge, but there's nothing on the ends underneath that tongue and groove to stop the heat from going out. So that's what we're going to actually take care of. We're going to cut the paper and stuff that from the ridge up to the tongue and groove boards. So once that's done, then your roof is complete with the insulation. The next step you'd want to do would be to install your roof sheeting. Our typical roof sheeting is 1/2 inch OSB. Depending on your location, it may be 5/8. That's depending on local regulations there. Again, like Claude mentioned earlier, you want to allow the sheeting to overhang the fascia by at least 3/4 to an inch, so the water will run into the rain gutter when it's installed. Goes up to the top. We do get a ridge vent installed up there. The ridge vent we use is a piece of plastic. It conforms to whatever pitch roof you have. There are longer nails that are supplied for this, cap to be nailed fast to. And there's also a matching shingle that goes over top of this. It's very low profile, not very noticeable. If you are doing a steel roof, we do not supply that roofing here at Coons Brothers. That would be something that you would purchase locally, wherever your house is going to be built. If you are going to get the rest of the materials from us, that means the roof sheeting that's going to go under the whatever metal roofing you're going to put on, you need to check with the manufacturer that you're going to buy your roofing from and see what for underlayment they require. Do they require OSB, plywood, 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4? Manufacturers have different recommendations for the fastening systems. So before you order your package from us for your decking, for the roof, make sure you find out from your manufacturer of the roof what type of underlayment has to be installed. If you live in an area, especially out in the west, and you see a build-up ridge, I mean, there's a ridge maybe 10, 12, 14 inches higher than your roof, that means you have an area that gets a tremendous amount of snow during the year. And the reason that ridge is built up is so it can get ventilation from the bottom. The air will go up the roof and out the ridge vent. If you had the low profile vent on, chances are it would be covered with snow and it wouldn't operate properly. So if that's something that's common in your area, by all means, let us know so we can design the roof in that manner so we can have the ridge raised up in the air for you. When you're finished on the top of the roof, we need to come back inside. And the area where the tongue and groove boards actually cross over the log wall, at each little V-groove area, we need to come back on the inside to take some caulking and actually fill those V-grooves up. If you think about it, those little V-grooves are actually an air leak into your house, so we need to make sure they're all sealed. Once they're sealed, this little triangle area needs to be filled up with fiberglass insulation. That'll, again, prevent any heat loss through that area. On the inside of that, take and cut some type of a piece of trim. Now you can use a piece of flooring like I did here, cut on the bevel, that will actually fit in on top of the log course right up against the roof. There's nothing wrong with taking 1x6 or even a 1x8, cutting a bevel on it and actually letting it hang down on the inside of the logs and then nailing that fast. If you do that method, you don't have to be as precise on all your measurements, getting everything so it just fits perfectly. But there has to be something done up there to close off that little bit of a triangle area. That pretty much concludes the beam and purlin roof system. The next thing we're going to do is the window installation.